So, let's dive into a project that's doing something pretty incredible. It's not just about taking history and putting it on a screen, it's about making it something you can actually play. We're going to explore how the iGame project is using code to remake culture and completely transform how we connect with the past. Just take a second and really picture that. This isn't some far-off sci-fi concept, it's the very real, tangible vision behind the European project iGame. The whole idea is to shift us from being passive spectators to becoming active participants in history. But, to really get why this is such a game changer, we first have to understand the problem it's trying to solve. So what's that problem? Well, it's this kind of quiet crisis that museums and cultural institutions are facing everywhere. They're struggling to stay relevant. I mean, in a world that's absolutely saturated with digital entertainment, how can a static display behind a velvet rope possibly compete for our attention? This right here really gets to the heart of it. On one side, you have the traditional experience. It's static, it's passive. And on the other, you have the digital world that completely hooks us with these immersive, interactive stories. And get this, the gaming industry? It's now bigger than the film and music industries combined. iGame looked at that gap, and instead of seeing a threat, they saw a massive opportunity. Okay, so how do you possibly bridge a gap that wide? The solution iGame came up with is to build a platform where we don't just look at the past, we actually get to play through it. It's about connecting the deep emotional power of our heritage with the incredible immersive power of modern gaming. At its core, the whole mission really boils down to one powerful idea: democratizing storytelling. This isn't about some small group of developers in a dark room deciding what history should look like. No way. It's about creating an open-source platform where museum pros, local artists, and even the public can all work together to build games that bring their own unique cultural stories to life. And this, right here, is the big bet the entire project is making. Because when you interact with a story, when you make choices and see the consequences, it stops being just a bunch of facts behind glass. It becomes personal. It becomes something you remember. And this is absolutely crucial for reaching younger, tech-native audiences who are just wired to participate, not just to watch. But look, the what they're building is only half the story. The how they're building it, well, that's where things get really innovative. They wanted to build this kind of digital campfire, a place where everyone could gather and tell stories together. But first, they had to figure out how to build it. 158. What on earth is that number? It's not a date. It's not some statistic pulled from an old document. It's the number of people, real people, who came together in this massive experiment in co-creation to figure out the very soul of this platform. And the diversity of this group was absolutely the secret sauce. I mean, look at this list. They brought everyone to the table. The curators who protect the artifacts, the textile experts who know the deep history, the indie developers who know how to build amazing worlds, and this is so important, visually impaired gamers to make sure accessibility was baked in from day one. This human-centered approach is everything. So what do you get when you bring all those people together? You get a creative sandbox. It's a digital space that uses AI and VR, but it's specifically designed for people to create together. This is a huge deal because it empowers cultural institutions, especially the smaller ones, to develop these rich, interactive experiences without needing a giant budget or a team of programmers. All right, let's pop the hood and look at the engine driving all of this, because the technology here is just as thoughtful as the process. This isn't just about flashy graphics, it's about building a truly ethical framework for digital heritage. You could almost call it the code of culture. A huge piece of the puzzle here is something called explainable AI, or XAI. We've all heard about the black box problem with AI, right? Where it gives you an answer, but you have no idea how it got there. Well, that's a huge risk when you're dealing with sensitive cultural history. XAI is the safeguard. It means the system can actually explain why it made a choice, why a character acted a certain way, for instance. It ensures transparency, it builds trust, and it respects the culture it's trying to represent. So this is their blueprint, their recipe for building tech that's both ethical and inclusive. It all starts with designing for everyone. Then they layer on co-creation to make sure the culture is represented accurately. After that, they use AI to make the storytelling smart and adaptive through its characters. And finally, they use XAI to keep the whole system transparent and fair. It's a model that any organization could really learn from. And I really want to drive this point home. For the iGame team, accessibility isn't just a feature you tack on at the end. It's the absolute foundation of everything they do. Following things like the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities wasn't just about checking a box, it was their starting principle. The entire goal is to build digital worlds that absolutely everyone can enter, understand, and help build. Okay, so we've covered the why, the what, and the how. But what does all of this actually mean in practice? What's the real-world impact for institutions, for decision makers, and, well, for you? The early results from their pilot programs are, well, they're incredibly promising. You can see the general trend here, but the real story is in the details. Museums like the Estonian National Museum and the Textile Museum of Prado tested out these prototypes, and they saw a major shift. It wasn't just more engagement, it was a totally different kind of engagement. They were pulling in younger audiences and, this is key, first-time visitors, people who might never have walked into a museum before. So if we boil all this down, what are the big takeaways? Well, if you're a creator or a curator, the message is loud and clear. Stop just digitizing things. Make them playable. For policymakers, this is a perfect model for how to fund innovation that's ethical and accessible right from the start. And for all the technologists and researchers out there, this project is proof that AI's best use isn't to replace us, but to seriously amplify our own creativity. So in the end, the iGame project is turning that dream of walking through history into real code, a real community, and a new kind of shared memory. And it leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about. If you had these tools, if you could build an interactive window into any moment in the past, what story would you want to tell? Where would you begin?